Both of these paintings show the exact same scene, but somehow one looks alive and the other one looks a little flat, right? Why doesn't the left one look as good? Maybe it's because of the colors used. Let's test that. If color was the reason, then when we remove it, both paintings should look almost the same, right? But they don't. Even in black and white, the one on the right still looks beautiful and the left one still looks dull. So clearly the difference isn't in color, it's in how the value is handled. Now what exactly is value and how important is it in our paintings? Value simply means how light or dark a color is. We can think of value as existing on a simple scale, usually from 1 to 9, starting with pure black at one end and pure white at the other. And value isn't just a property of black and white images, every color has its own lightness or darkness too. Everything we see, every shadow, every highlight fits somewhere on this scale. It's the easiest way to visualize or categorize values because instead of saying that's kind of dark, you can say that's around a value 3 or that's close to a value 7. Every color we use actually has three main components: hue, saturation, and value. Hue is the color family itself. For example, red, blue, or yellow. When you mix one hue with another, you shift its family, like adding blue to red to get purple. Saturation refers to how bright or muted a color is. You can change it by adding gray or by mixing in its opposite hue. Both make the color appear more muted or less intense. Third, and the most important component is value, which is the lightness or darkness of a color. You can change it by adding white or black, which are called tints and shades, or by adjusting the tone, which also directly affects the saturation. Think of it this way: hue equal to which color, value equal to how light or dark, saturation equal to how pure or dull. The easiest way to compare the values between two colors is to convert them to black and white and then simply see which one looks lighter or which one looks darker. Now, it's easier to compare values within the same hue, but it gets trickier when we start introducing variations in other components, like different hues or tones. Let's see some examples and train our eyes a little. I'll show you a few pair of colors and you have to guess which one has the darker value. Ready? Let's start easy. Here's the first one. Same hue family, both are red. One's a lighter red and the other's deeper. Which one's darker in value? The deeper red, of course. And this one's easy to spot because we are comparing the same hue. When hue stays constant, value differences are much clearer. Now both are still red, but this time one is muted and the other is bright and saturated. Which one looks darker? They might feel very different, but surprisingly their values are very close. That's because saturation, how bright or dull a color is, can trick your eyes into thinking it's lighter or darker than it really is. Here's a simple trick. Try squinting your eyes. It softens the image, removing all those small color distractions and leaves you with just the main light and dark shapes. That's how artists train their eyes to see value instead of color. Now let's move to something from different hue family. One's light beige, others light blue. Which one looks darker to you? The light blue. Alright, now for the tricky one. Muted red versus muted green. Both pretty dull, both mid-range in intensity. Which one's darker? They're almost identical. This is where color or hue really starts lying to us. Different hues can look very different but share the same value. So the more we start mixing up different hues and different saturations, the harder it becomes to judge value by eye. That's why artists often check their work in black and white, It instantly reveals whether your painting has strong value contrast or everything's blending together. Now that we understand how to see value, let's talk about how to actually use it, how to place values intentionally in a painting. When we talk about using value, we mean deciding where the lightest areas will be, where the darkest areas will be, and how the values step from one area to another. This arrangement is the painting's value structure, almost like the skeleton underneath the colors. It helps us show shape and form, create a sense of distance, draw attention to the focal point, set the overall mood, and keep the composition balanced. Let's go through each of these. Shape and form. Value helps in defining the form of an object. A sphere looks round not because of its outline, but because of the smooth transition from light to dark. By defining how light interacts with the object, we make something look 3D. Distance and depth. Value changes help us show what's near or far. As things move farther away, their values get lighter and their contrast softens. That's how we create distance. That's why distant hills look pale and washed out. It's value that creates atmospheric perspective. Focal point. Our eyes are drawn to contrast. The lightest light next to the darkest dark grabs our attention first. That's how artists guide the viewer's eyes in their painting by using value to create that contrast. Unity and balance in a composition. Even if your colors are all over the place, if your value structure is strong, your painting will still hold together. That's why good paintings still work beautifully when seen in grayscale. It's the backbone of any good painting. Value is what gives a painting its realism, depth, and form. Even if your colors are slightly off, but your values are right, your painting will still look believable. In my next video, we'll create a value scale you can use while mixing a painting, something you can literally keep on your desk. And if you often feel your colors don't look the way you intended or they turn muddy, there's a very simple reason for that. Watch this next video where we explore this topic.